have a second panel discussion, the topic being Mastering Product Skills in Gen AI Era. I invite Haripriya Shivram Krishnan, who's the moderator for this session. Haripriya, welcome. She currently is serving as a vice president at State Street Global Advisors. Prior to her role at State Street, Haripriya held key positions in prominent organizations including Citi, JP Morgan Chase and Company. Extensive experience also includes roles at Sun Microsystems, TCS, ABN AMRO Bank, NV, where she honed her skills in areas such as trade, operations, GIS analysis, and quality leadership. With her wealth of experience and expertise in the banking and business strategy domains, we welcome Haripriya to the dais and moderate the session. Our other panelists are Srinath Reddy. We are delighted to have you with us. Srinath Reddy, a dynamic, multi-skilled individual and head of technology at KK HR. Having spent almost a decade at KK and companies like Technovent, he played a pivotal role in shaping the company's technological landscape. Our second panelist is Ashish Mittal. Ashish, I know you personally as well. It's wonderful to have you here. He works with Srinithi group of institutions. He's heading the HR department. He works as a chief HR officer. Ashish is a renowned figure in the HR industry, having earned recognition as one of Asia's 100 power leaders in HR and securing a spot in the prestigious Forbes India top 50 leaders. I think we need to give him a good applause. Also served as a general manager, head HR and deputy general manager in companies like Pearson, Infosys, BPN, Manipal International University. He has also held key position in Akshaya Patra Foundation and the Heritage Foundation. Next panelist is Professor Raghu Reddy. He is an accomplished professional currently serving as the associate professor and head of software engineering research center at IITH. With a tenure spanning 12 years at IIITH, Raghu has held pivotal roles, including program head for MTech in product design and management programs, director and for PG certificate in software engineering for data science, as well as previous positions at prestigious institutions like Rochester Institute of Technology and Colorado State University. With his extensive background and continuous contributions to the field of software engineering, we welcome you, Raghu. Our next panelist is Sai Sathish Vedam, a versatile and accompanied product leader. He is a chief product officer and co-founder at the Institute of Product Leadership, where he plays a pivotal role in shaping product leadership and education. Sai Sathish's expansive career travels around, includes a remarkable stint at Oracle. I wouldn't like to call a stint, a huge tenure, where he has held roles such as principal product manager, director of product management, and senior director of product management, along with contribution to Sun Microsystems. Welcome to all of you, and Haripriya, I hand it over to you.
So broadly, we'll cover impact of Gen AI on the product skills, the role that HR will bring in, the product management, plus the continuous learning in Gen AI era. We'll touch a little on Indian market and specifically to organization, and last, how we build future product leaders. So with no further ado, I'll get started. Probably Professor Sai, I'll get started with you. You bring in a rich experience in product management, and your passion towards products is very, very inspiring. If I may ask, with generative AI integrating with product lifecycle, how do you think the traditional skills will have to diversify to, kind of blend into the new one?
So allow me for 30 seconds
Sure.
to just understand our audience.
Perfect.
Like a good product manager, you should really understand whose needs are you addressing and how you're going to do that. So a really quick question. How many of you here are in product management roles with more than 10 plus years experience, or more than 10 years? Or at least you think you're in a product manager role? Now, I'll tell you why I'm asking that. Because we have very creative titles in India, isn't it? For product managers especially. You could be a requirement scientist for all you know. This is an emerging title in many companies that I see, right? So, good. So about 30% of you are in product roles with at least 10 plus years experience. The remaining ones either are aspiring to get into that role or you are curious about that. That's my assumption, right? Aspiring to and do that. Okay, so now before I jump into and answer that generative AI thing specifically, let me here is the perspectives that I will bring in. There are 3 points of view that I will bring in, right? The first one is for all the programs that this IPL, not the other IPL, Institute of Product Leadership, works with lots of industry practitioners and leaders who are building products in various companies, building companies, right? And continuously we work with them. And one question we ask them regularly: what is changing in the landscape that you think we should bring about to help people get better at? This is a continuous question that I ask. That's a first perspective. The second one is the hiring manager's perspective. Because almost about 8 to 9 companies every month come to hire at IPL, and all of them are looking at different skills, and are they changing? So how important is generative AI? Are they looking for any of those skills right now while hiring? And the third one, my own journey, my own perspectives as a product coach, as an executive coach, who I work with hundreds of people in helping them transition into those careers. Now, fourth, I did not do deliberately. I have not consulted ChatGPT. Right? So these are the 3 points of views that I will try to bring in so that you know where they are coming from, right? Now, I'd like to jump in and talk about, before generative AI, what are the core product skills? And there are lots of competencies in that, right? And just to level set everybody's understanding, at least for the purpose of this discussion, I want to frame what product management is. As I said, there is lots and lots of definitions, lots of misunderstanding in the industry. I spent 25 years working as an engineer, 14 years as a product manager and product leader, and I work with hundreds of companies which are trying to hire, right? So when I say product management, I'm referring to role, not a title. And so what is that role? That role is very simple, very difficult to achieve, but very simple. It's an art and science of identifying the market needs and driving the team towards creating compelling, profitable, and competitive products. Now, there are a few key words here. The art and science. Second one is driving the team. Now, if you're a product owner, you might be thinking you own the product. And a lot of you may have heard of this cliches that product manager is the CEO of the product. Right? You are driving the team towards creating compelling, competitive, and profitable products. That's it. That is essentially product management. Now, in that context, what are the core skills? Market analysis, which has many competencies. I won't go into that unless you have questions, right? And because we want to see how generative AI now impacts or influences all these things. Strategic planning, product planning, go-to-market, and sales enablement. The go-to-market and sales enablement part comes at a product leadership level where you interlock with product marketing and do that. But the first 3, market analysis, strategic planning, and product planning in the context of products are super important. So now let's bring in this new beast.
The Gen AI.
About, right? The generative AI. Now, I'm sure everybody has heard, and that's why you're all here. And I believe we are at a tipping point of the hype curve right now. Right? You guys know the hype curve, right? The next one is trough of disillusionment. I hope it doesn't fall into that, because lots, and I've seen in my own career 7 such disruptive things come. Some of them stuck around, some of them just went away. But this is truly disruptive. There's no doubt about it. Right? I hope you guys can hear me, right? Yeah. Now, if you look at every such skill that I talked about, there are 2 ways to think how you as a product manager can leverage this generative AI part of it. When I say generative AI, I'm not just talking about the large language models of text, but also image, audio, video, all kinds of content. Right? Now, you put this into 2 categories. One, you as an individual product manager working towards improving your efficiencies and speed up your creative process. Today, that's where the most use is. The second part typically is generative AI in the enterprise, which means companies trying to leverage that to build products to compelling experiences. Now that has a long way to go, and I have my reasons, and I'll come to that later, right? But every aspect, including market analysis, which basically involves customer insighting, validation, competitive analysis, right? Strategic planning includes product strategy, portfolio analysis, and these things, right? And the third one, product planning, which a lot of product managers in India are currently in, which is requirements management, requirements definition, user stories, prioritization, roadmaps, and design. This is a subset of the overall product management skills, right? Would you agree? The most of the PMs in India especially are in that product planning stage. Now, every step, every competency can be, 10x, 50x improved in terms of productivity and efficiency with Gen AI. I can give several, I'm sure panel has lots of examples to do that. Right? Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Professor Raghu, maybe I'll shift gears to understand. I know you're leading the product management and design at IT and has also been leading the data science and software work streams here. So if you have to pinpoint on the specific skill set or competency that you would require from the traditional, whatever we have seen, I think Professor Sai touched a bit, if you can throw some light with your experience.
Thank you, Haripriya. So I guess, so we are in the zillionth Gen AI panel, and I'm sure out there in Mars, there's one more probably going on in terms of Gen AI panels. That's how it's become, right? So every other street you turn to in an IT city, you will probably find a Gen AI panel. Fortunate or unfortunate, I'll leave it up to you guys, right? I know he touched upon a lot, and I'm sure from a product management perspective, right? So broadly, if you look at a product, I would want to at least divide it from an engineering lifecycle perspective and a management lifecycle perspective. And a lot of talk goes on from a management lifecycle perspective, right? We also, as product managers, need to look at the engineering lifecycle perspective. And to me, there's a lot that will probably happen from an engineering lifecycle perspective, because unless you drill down to actually being able to identify what's the specific support, right, that's available. And when I say support, it's not just in your team, it's the ecosystem. What support does the ecosystem provide you? If you don't have it, your product is bound to fail. No matter how complex your algorithm is, or how exaggerant or fantastic your actual management lifecycle is. It does not matter, right? Ultimately, you have to have the supporting ecosystem. And that requires a lot of tool support, right? So to me, a lot of skill set, at least from an engineering lifecycle perspective, needs to go into building these tools and managing these tools, right? Don't look at it as a large product, right? Small products, whatever that might be, that's going to support. Because you have a life cycle where you're looking at a traditional engineering life cycle going from requirements all the way to maintenance, right? And of course, at some point, end of life. And everywhere at this point, you'll have to look at what's the skill set needed to develop these tools and manage these tools. That, to me, is more important. Whether it be, let's say, I'm building a tool set for math, right? What's the mathematical knowledge that I need to build this tool set and use Gen AI to generate maybe a step-by-step solution for a particular math problem, right? Whether it's a SciMath or a Wolfram Alpha type tool, for example. Or maybe you're developing a product, I need to create design prototypes, right? What's the specific tool set that's needed? Because it's not just plug and play. You're typically looking at tailoring a particular solution, because it's not as if you're going to use ChatGPT as it is. It's not as if you're going to use Llama 2 as it is, right? Your large brain, which are the large LLMs, have to be transferred into a small brain. That's the skill set that's needed. How do I transfer them and apply it in the context of your particular solution? Generics, yeah, well and good, that ChatGPT can provide, right? But as managers, how do we bring that value? The additional add-on values is that transfer of knowledge to Your problem, your product, your organization.
Absolutely. And in the tea break, he also touched upon how engineering is one of the key streams. And it was good to know the statistics, 68% research still happening on computer. Thanks for that. I'll move into understanding the HR role. Mr. Ashish, your experience in HR spans across, corporates, NGOs, which is very interesting, and also academia. And you stress a lot upon work-life balance too, so it's interesting. Could you share insights on how HR practices and talent acquisition strategies have adapted in response to the changing technologies?
Sure, thank you so much. So I'm going to start actually, I would say I would like to, with the Gen AI, I would like to focus on 3 key areas. Okay, we're looking because as the HR leaders, we are bombarded day and night. Every day is a different day for HR leaders. You can ask anybody, and nobody knows where we are going to be for the next 15 minutes. So 3 main areas where you're looking is first is improved efficiency. Okay, so the point over here is since there's a lot of data and we want quick analysis, and so we want generative AI to help HR leaders to take better informed decisions. Okay, and so with this context, I would like to share one particular incident which just happened on 5th September, 3 days back. I'm just linking that. It just struck me just a few seconds back, and I thought this is the best place. 5th September, I kind of reached home around 6 p.m. I was completely exhausted. Last 3 days were kind of roller coaster ride. And I was about to hit the sack. And just when I got a call from one of the senior academicians, I do not know why he called me, probably, yes, he knows me pretty well. He said, Ashish, I have decided that I want to commit suicide in the next 15 minutes. Of all the blues, I received this call. I was zapped. And I said, yes, this person definitely needs my help. And I said, just give me 20 seconds. I just had 20 seconds to take a decision. I had not done any physical fitness for the last 3 days. So I said, let me carry my power bank, let me carry my Bluetooth set. And I decided, and I connected with him, had a non-stop conversation for 4 hours non-stop. Understood his entire problems, what he or she was going through, gave a resolution, and after 4 hours, he was completely decided normal. And the challenge didn't end over here. I had 2 more employees, major escalations. They wanted my time. I said, Ashish, anyways, I'm walking, so let me just continue my walk. So the question which rang to my mind, today was, as we have so many PMs, project managers sitting in this room, can we do something what if I had a board review presentation next day? And if I didn't have time, because you don't know. So can there some tools be developed which can actually help, we call it early warning indicators, wherein a person is not well, mental wellness, so that the right help is provided to the right individual at the right time. We're talking about Industry 5.0, which talks about technology taking care of human beings, right? So is there some kind of tool? Secondly, as HR leaders, we want all the routine works, redundant transactional works to be taken over by Gen AI so that we can actually focus on strategic areas. We can understand interacting with the employees, trying to understand their pain points, and trying to see that we can give our best. So this is one of the key things, and yes, so I would say a lot of expectations are there in terms of from Gen AI and from an HR perspective. We are looking how to make the life of HR leaders work at a very strategic level, removing all the transactional jobs out.
Thank you, Mr. Ashish. Mr. Srinath, I know Keka urges us to reimagine HR, right? So, we always talk about workday, so I was just trying to understand how is Keka bringing a change. So, in your experience with HR technology, what innovative tools and solutions could help HR professionals in assessing the right candidates?
So, at Keka, we have kept employee experience in the forefront. In fact, we go by for the love of employee experience. Let me take a simple journey of an employee where it starts, right from employee persona and from hiring manager persona that we touched, and the well-being of an employee. So in most of the cases, the tools, the technology where it can enable for a hiring manager when he gets to screen hundreds of resumes, be it 500, 600, because of the volume of resumes or the candidates, inflow of the candidates that they are getting, they typically go with algorithmic sorting kind of thing where they add some blind rules key, 4+ years of experience, or we should have so and so XYZ skill set. Rather, in this era, you can avoid or you can overcome those kind of bias, trying to understand the skills, the responsibilities that you need for a particular role, and mapping with the candidate resume. You can analyze with the tools that we have today. You can analyze and summarize the experiences that he come from, rather doing blind check with skills and the keywords that are there in the resumes. Coming to the employee well-being, if we touch the next aspect of it, which is the primary essence or function of the HR, there are many micro interactions that you get signs of an employee. If they are applying for a leave, how was their day? If they are just applying for a leave, we can simply check the pulse of an employee, a kind of a thing where you just rate. They're still, I'm happy, I'm not happy, it's not a right day for me, it's not a great day. With these indications, over time, it will be able to tell you the pulse of an employee, how they are feeling in an organization, overall, what's the happiness indicator in the organization, which will greatly help the HR personals to gauge the mood in the organization or the teams. Or if you further drill down, you get to know which teams are having more sort of issues, or which teams are not feeling great at work, and how you can connect or align with your organization goal. So these are few factors where technology can enable and bridge the gap between the HR personnel and the employees.
Very interesting. I think a lot of personalization, we try and do that as well to get into candidates. Before we switch gears to understanding about the continuous learning, let me pause to see if any questions from audience. We can take one question from audience. Please go ahead. Why don't you call out your name and then ask your question?
Thank you. So one thing that has been coming out to the fore is sifting through resumes and helping hiring managers take those right calls. So whenever you're using GenAI, there can be two aspects to it. One, you are using it as a mere language model trying to understand the keywords. And the other is an outcome-based GenAI where you are actually understanding what led to successful outcomes. So when you're sifting through resumes, there could be numerous biases of hiring managers which might impact outcomes. So, like for example, there could be very well a case where certain kind of people from a certain colleges or... All right. So my question is, how will you manage these biases if you're using GenAI to sift through resumes?
Mr. Srinath, you want to give a try?
So with GenAI, particularly with GenAI, if hiring managers are going through the profile, see, one thing is for sure, GenAI is not going to replace the human factor of hiring manager and his decision-making skills. It's just going to be an assistant for him, or kind of AI assistant or a co-pilot, which is working with the hiring managers and giving indicators which profiles are a good match for the given role. And in fact, GenAI can in fact even hide the details like demographics of a candidate or gender of a candidate, where you can configure in the products, which will reduce the biasing factor to a great extent. It's more of matching the responsibilities that you need for a particular job and the experience that the candidate carry.
Thank you.
Just one context to it. In HR, we have something called blind hiring. Okay, so we do the blind hiring for a few roles alone. So of course, it's debatable, but very high all the demographics, everything, so that we can just focus on the skill set alone and not anything else. So there we kind of help to reduce all the various biases.
I want to give a simple answer. I don't think anything changes because of GenAI. Okay. The problem of fairness and bias has existed since 1980s, right? GenAI, just because the buzzword came in, nothing has changed. So you would still want fairness, you would still want bias to be eliminated. And what's the background, what's the data set that's needed, what's the balancing that's needed from your entire data sources, that still applies.
Thank you. We'll try and understand right now about a little on continuous learning. Professor Sai, you have played the role of product management, a coach, been a co-founder as well, I think, and been in academia. So you bring in all together, right? So in this evolving Gen AI landscape, how crucial is continuous learning, and what is your suggestion for individual learning as well?
Well, I think there's no debate about continuous learning, irrespective of generative AI,
yeah.
right? But here is a slight difference that I'm at least viewing it as. I believe that we are kind of at a tipping point of what was called as a knowledge era for a long time, which means the intent of accumulating knowledge through a learning continuous habit. It's a habit, right? Some people have developed that habit because I want to accumulate knowledge. I don't know when it'll come to use, whenever it comes to use, and I have a phrase for this, it's called inventory of skills. Right? So a lot of people have that, and it served well for a while. I believe now, because a lot of things are very dynamic and complex, we are shifting to what I call as a single loop and double loop based learning. Let me explain that single loop and double loop. Single loop is very simple. An event has happened, and you have observed the result. Now you need to analyze that and figure out why it has happened and come up with a solution for it, which is what most of us do. Right? But we are doing these things repeatedly, continuously, and at a rapid pace now. And what that means is there is no time for deep learning, pun intended. Right? There is really no time for spending enough time to learn. So we have to learn things very efficiently, rapidly, and move on. Right? Yeah. So that's now double loop learning is after you analyze and make a decision, it's important to take a pause and say, can this be applicable in any other situation? Now that is something that I believe we all have to ask, right? And this is where I strongly believe it's not just about Gen AI. Gen AI is going to accelerate this. Is interdisciplinary learning is going to become critical. Because things that have happened in your world are going to be applicable and can be made applicable in other, which has always been there. It's going to become more urgent. So if you are the person who are able to connect these dots together across disciplines, right? You may come from engineering. I come from engineering. I was part of the team that built Java, right? And that experience, don't leave it there. Now, are you able to connect with some other, chaotic scenario in business? And to me and so I'll summarize in two parts, right? There is something called extraction and there is something called transfer in learning. Extraction is what I just talked about. What will you draw from it? And so that not with the intent of solving that particular thing, but able to apply it in different contexts. Now, transfer is super critical because transfer includes linking, as we said, connected. And I strongly encourage and urge many of you to start teaching. Teaching is the best way of learning anything, right? In whatever way that you can. If you develop this habit of teaching, then the moment you read something, the moment you experiment something, and you go and talk about it, you go and tell 10 other people, that sticks in your mind.
Thank you. And I'll bring it to our organization, like State Street, wherein everybody wants to be in part of Gen AI, right? That's the latest one. So you're, like you said, the interdisciplinary skills, that's really going to move people, mobilize people internally. I think that's going to be a great support as well. Mr. Ashish, you have penned a very good article on power of employee experience. Why don't you talk about, as HR professional, what strategies and resources do you believe are efficient in continuous learning?
So I would actually just like to walk 2 steps back and say,
sure.
in terms of skills, because today's skill itself become like a commodity, just like a product has a product life cycle. We know that what skills we have today, high possibility it'll be redundant, outdated in the next 2 years. Unlike the olden times, like you just learn something and you're going to retire with that skills. So I think today one of the areas which as HR leaders where we are trying to focus is more on personalized learning, because it's not one shoe fits all. Everybody in the education space, we talk about bite-sized learning, micro-sized learning, right? So because employees want to learn at their own pace, right? They want to probably learn at night 12 or morning 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., whatever. They need to have the right tools, right infrastructure, right facilities, right opportunities for them. So as HR leaders, we try to ensure that we provide this best personalized learning, because this personalized learning will help us to get a lot of data, which particular concept a particular employee has understood or not understood. So with this, we are able to understand and provide the right kind of training inputs and training programs for employees at an org level. So this is what I want.
Yeah, perfect. And I think that will lead to what Mr. Srinath touched on, happiness index probably. So that's good. Professor Raghu, I'm sure you have addressed many Gen AI kind of discussions, but can you share some insights and strategies that would be more efficient for an Indian market? If you can touch a little about that.
Okay. Now that's an interesting question, especially because a lot of us obviously always talk about what's happening in US, what's happening in Europe, right? And just curious again, going back to what you started out with, how many of you actually have even looked at LLMs from India? Any LLM from India? Have you even heard about it?
Yoga GPT, Gita GPT, no? Okay.
Huh? It's now 9.5 months since OpenAI released its first version, right? And I'm surprised we haven't heard, right? That in itself should give us an answer why we need to work with an India-specific context, right? Especially with huge governmental support in terms of language. Projects like Bhashini, which do machine translation from multiple languages, right? So you start looking at it, you want to build data sets which are India specific, whatever be the case. Forget about LLMs. Start off by looking at data sets that are India specific. Data sets for Indian driving conditions. And look at it, we are talking about autonomous driving cars, ADAS level 1, and then I proudly come back and say, oh, mine is level 2. And then we really don't understand what is level 2 in an Indian context. Right? What does it really mean to have ADAS level 2 in an Indian context? No, it's really different from level 1 in US versus level 4 in US versus here, right? So I would probably say that we need to start looking at building data sets as the first step from an Indian context. That will give us a lot more problems that are India specific, not just language, education, right? How do you educate? We talk about personalization. All these models, all these training sets are from somewhere. Can I now use that on some random person who's there in Chhattisgarh? It has to be contextual, right? We talk about prompt engineering. That's the latest. Designation, isn't it? Prompt engineer. I want to be a prompt engineer. Your prompt engineer, unfortunately, is based on US data. So start thinking about it, and this is a genuine request to all the managers out here who are building products, right? Please look at creating India-specific models.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think tying it back to what Professor Ramesh spoke in the morning as well. Indians, instead of Bay Area, Indians for Indian market, right? That's something that he touched upon. Very interesting. Thank you.
I don't know, let me ask you and the audience here. In March, in one of the big forums of MIT, Ashwini Kumar gave a hint when the interviewer asked him, so when is India going to have its chat GPT moment? Did anybody watch that? Or maybe I'm the only obscure guy who's watching this stuff. So he actually asked this very specific question. So when is India going to have its chat GPT moment? And you know what he said? Just wait for 2 more weeks and you will be surprised. Hold on, that happened in March. And I was equally excited as you. I'm still excited. I don't know what about. Right? I'm sure there is a lot of stuff going on. But I think, everybody, especially in public domain, open source projects, these are the ones that need to contribute to, essentially, just to summarize Raghu's thing, number one, when we talk about LLMs, we are talking about 4 things. Data, language, and context. 3 things. That's all. But we have to build these 3 things, and it's not an easy job. I know engineering head, a CTO of a company called Reverie Technologies, who's actually an alumni of IPL, but this guy runs an engineering team who's doing a real-time translation of Indian language websites. Real-time, through mobile apps and everything. Right? So some interesting work, but to your point, I think the responsibility is in all of us. There's nothing else.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll do one last question to this panel. Srinath, maybe I'll start with you. What are the key insights you share regarding the role of bridging academia, bringing and building future product leaders? Where do you think we should, what we should do to be future ready, I would say?
So I'll start with open source contributions. That's something that is going to help students and particularly academia to understand what's happening in the space. There are many interesting projects, and if we talk about, if we speak about we have Swechha, which does a lot of events around. A couple of you might have heard about it as well, where they have been doing sessions on different technologies and primarily focused on the open source technologies, where gathering industry experts, students, and then encouraging them for the contributions. The recent projects, like they've been working on one of the transport module to help understand the timings of metro or timings of public transport, where they're building an app particularly for different metro cities. So contributing for these open source projects is going to greatly help bridge the gap between the needs of the industry and the academia as well.
Perfect. Mr. Ashish, your thoughts on how do we, bridge the gap between, academia and the industry, if I may say?
See, one of the biggest aspect is, today we churn out a lot of students, IITs, IIMs, or various universities. But how well are they kind of having an industry exposure? Because gone are the days of bookish knowledge, right? And we have ChatGPT and various tools. So I think the best way to bridge the gap is to give them real-time projects, and also have a lot of academicians to work in the industry, so that they are able to go and translate and add value to the students, so that the students understand the concepts and also how to apply these concepts on a day-to-day basis. So once these two are kind of mixed, that will really help the students.
No, absolutely. I'll echo that. I'm also pursuing my executive MBA product leadership, and the product labs. That is one of the interesting thing, wherein we learn experiential learning, a lot of learning. While in theory you can learn, and Professor Raghu, we just touched a little about that. So why don't you give your insights there?
Okay, I guess as an academic I should have a better answer, right?
Absolutely.
So I'll first of all start by saying I don't think we should look at ChatGPT as a competitor. Okay, see, unfortunately what happens is, as academics, we are always afraid of change, right? So when things come along, technology comes in, we tend to fight it rather than embrace it, right? And to us, at least from IIIT's perspective, I can say, I think we encourage people to use ChatGPT. You want to write a programming assignment, it's not about finding the solution. Okay? In fact, a lot of instructors I know, for example, if you create a programming assignment, they would start off with ChatGPT and create the programming assignment, and then tweak it, because ChatGPT can't act on it anymore. Now, it's about understanding the program and the nuances of the program rather than just trying to build a program, right? That's where you start kind of thinking about the mind and what sort of changes should somebody, learn as part of programming, for example, right? Going back to the whole real life experience, for example. So we have been running, at least I personally have been running a course which is taught to the sophomore students, second year undergrad engineering students. It's called Software Systems Analysis and Design, right? And the course fundamentally requires a 3.5 month, 4 month project that they have to do. And these projects have real clients. And when I say real clients, these are, projects that are actually elicited by industry people, including startups. They will propose a project, we scope it down in the context of what you can do in 4 months, and the student is expected to deliver, including deploy their particular piece of prototype as part of the project, right? Wow. And so this is built into their second year curriculum itself. So as a result, we don't think there is that much problem. They don't get scared of anything hands-on, right? So devil is in the details. You basically ensure your hand in addition to your brain also works.
Absolutely. And Professor Sai, you keep encouraging to use ChatGPT. He would say, use whatever, but show me what prompt you use, right? So you may want to conclude on this topic.
Yeah, no. I kind of straddle both worlds, and which is unfortunate in certain ways. But I think let's take two parties here. One, we said the academic institutions.
Right.
The other one is all our companies, industry where we work in. On the first part, I think I'm seeing changes, and I believe it's going to happen a lot more. Is number one, weaving this generative AI usage into every assessment, every project, and basically say, go use it. right? And I'll give you a simple example. I teach product strategy in the executive MBA program. And for a couple of years, one of the basic assessment was take a company, pick your favorite company, and do a strategic analysis of that company, right? So the strategic analysis has several elements: internal, external, political, economical, business related, all kinds of things. If you have to really do it well, it would take you 3 weeks. And today, you can do a strategic analysis reasonably well with hallucinations. Now, if you don't know the word hallucinations, it's okay, you're spared, right? You can do that strategic analysis in 3 minutes. But you have to iterate and iterate to get to that right thing to ask, right question to ask to get that strategic analysis. But what I'm saying is, don't ask students to, or don't evaluate students on the output. Evaluate students on the critical thinking, right? Which means, how did you get this, and why did you consider not? And several institutes that I'm seeing are changing that part. So that's on the participants, students part. Students doesn't mean just college students, right? Anybody who's learning.
Yeah.
And on the other side, which is an industry, I believe institutes like IIIT are doing enormous amount of research.
Yeah.
And we as industry need to partner with to commercialize, to productize those research, right? If that is not happening, we will be for a long time, we have been solving customer problems of some other country. Of course, we've been doing that now for the last 7 or 8 years. We've been focusing on our own needs and our own problems, which is good. But there's a lot of incredible amount of research that is happening in institutes like this. And so to me, bringing that and formalizing that structure is the only way to do it.
Thank you. Very, very interesting discussion. We'll ask two questions from the panel.
Yeah, we can take
audience.
2 questions quickly, and short questions, please.
So we'll take the middle one.
One from the lady and one from the gentleman. Thank you. My question is more around application of AI in the real life products. So what are the risks, privacy issues, ethical implications and compliance, legal compliance, challenges that you have seen with real life, applying Gen AI in the real life products?
I think more towards data privacy. How do we manage that in this, Professor Sai, you want to take this?
So quickly, I think there are 2 aspects to it again. One is there is a lot of reluctance. And by the way, I said one of the perspectives I speak to lots of these product leaders who are leading product initiatives and how you're bringing that. Something came out very interesting. 39% of the companies, at least among 20 odd companies that I talked to, basically said they have no intent of doing anything with Gen AI in this year, which is fascinating. Whereas 37% of them said that we are actually starting to create some experiments. Now, why is this, while the whole world is talking about all of these things, the organizations are taking a very cautious approach, not because the technology is not mature or anything. It's because of simple reasons. Number one, lack of domain-specific models is number one thing.
Absolutely.
Right? We have generic LLMs, large foundational models that were built on public data, who knows what it is. But your business, for example, State Street,
Yes.
is a financial services company. You have your own ontologies, you have your own context and data. So domain-specific models are being built. So that is going to take some time. Now there are different approaches different companies are taking to that. The second part is this access control, right, privacy, data security, right? You cannot just open up these public large language models to everyone in the company. How many companies have banned this inside your company network? Right? This is because you can upload any kind of data, nobody knows. There is a clear violation of access controls there. So companies are trying to figure out how do we do this. Now there are a few companies who have isolated containers where they are doing these experiments. There are companies that are doing enterprise versions of this ChatGPT, which is horrible, by the way. It's very expensive and all
Very,
of that,
the
right?
cost, yeah.
So a lot of things. Now, the other side of your question, which is from a customer experience standpoint, there is, as Professor Raghu said, there is going to be an inevitable and there is already inevitable bias. Bias is something that can only be done if your data on which you have trained the models is bias-free, which is incredibly hard, but you have to make those. You have to fine-tune those foundational models. Otherwise, it will impact the end users in any way. But in other cases, personalization is superb. Now, data privacy, I worked for a company whose CEO said 25 years ago, there is no privacy, get over it. I will stick by it.
All right, we'll take one last question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So my question is on the other side, like we know the advantages we have been speaking about, but if we take a look on the other side, like we know, like on the past election, in US elections, there was some bots which were on the Twitter, which were tweeting and all. So how do we see that in Indian elections as well, or we have the general elections coming
Oh, it's
in?
happening.
Professor Raghu, yeah.
Yeah, I like that question. See, I think if you want a managerial perspective, you do a SWOT analysis, right? But if you really start thinking about it, as recently as I think 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, there was a major report that came out about the problems with AI, right? And that applies to Gen AI as well, whether it is ethics, fairness, bias, whatever are these characteristic qualities that you typically associate with any system will probably exist with AI-based system, right? So how do you handle it? That's where the real question is, whether it is prompt injections or whether it is hallucinations or any of these new issues. Of course, the verbiage changes, right? But ultimately, what do you want? You want factuality, right? The new words keep popping up. Eventually, think about it. You want a system to be correct. True? It's not because of AI. Whatever be the system, you want the system to be correct. Now, can you reduce the probability of your output, wherein your output is giving facts or realistic enough that they are equivalent to facts? That's where I think research is probably going to go in, and a lot of this research is directly translated to whatever applications is being built, whether it is for politics, whether it is for Times of India or whatever, to give these election analysis, right? Ultimately, they are not building anything. It's people like us who are building things and they are using it, right? Unfortunate thing is they probably plug in data that suits them best. That's where the real problem is.
I love this because I actually have been part of a political party for a long time, card-carrying member. I have deep interest in politics because that's the only way transformative change happens, and I truly believe that. And I also work with lots of political consulting organizations to understand what they do. At least there's one company in Bangalore called Rajniti. This is a political consulting company. They are using AI beautifully. Now, how the output, what they use it for, I don't know. They won't tell you. Right? We will only know after the results come out. But exactly the same tools that we are building, all of us are building, are being used for different applications, just one other application. Right? If you have not watched the Cambridge Analytica documentary on Netflix, that will show you a lot of answers.
Yeah. So just one last thought. If anybody is interested in building a Play Store for LLMs, please come and talk to me.
Interesting.
Sai,
Thank you so much. Yeah.
I resonate with what you said. Teaching is the most gratifying job ever. I'll take 30 seconds to tell you an incident. When I was all of 10 years old, 6th class, my mother has always been a teacher all her life. And she said teaching is the best profession, and I mocked at her. And for the last 13 years that I've been teaching, every time I enter the class, I kick myself and tell, Mommy, you were so right.
It's also a poor profession in this country.
Very badly paid, yes. Ashish, I have a quick question for you. As with all the AI and generative AI, etc., the youngsters who are coming into the organizations, who've got lots of fire in the belly, but they have things to do quickly. So is it going to help them not do their jobs correctly?
See, I'm just saying today it poses a lot of challenge actually. See, because everybody wants probably 2 minutes Maggi noodles. So my point is, today we have a very mixed gen set working in an organization. We have baby boomers, Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, millennials. So people want to do a smart work, not a hard work, right? They want to smart work, just finish it off and present it at the earliest. So definitely it is going to put a bit of challenge in terms of how we are going to assess their quality of work, because it's not just a tick mark. And second thing, just slightly digressing, I would also say one of the biggest key challenges is from a talent acquisition perspective. Today, for one job we advertise, trust me, there are more than 1,000 applications. Few months back, I was very happy with my team. Oh wow, what a well-constructed CV. Right choice of words. 4 months back, I saw 90% of the CVs had the same language, ChatGPT. Same thing applies sick leaves today, right? I mean, your exit interviews, your resignation mails. It's all chat GPT stuff coming. It's like so sick to even to read those mails because there's nothing personal involved in it. So I'm actually questioning myself as so many product managers. We should really try to see something how it really helps HR, I mean talent acquisition team to get the right talent for the right job. That's extremely important because with the use of AI, most of the CVs have the same buzzwords, same catchwords.
We actually had this product many years ago before AI called bullshit detector.
All right.
I don't know if you know this, but I'll tell you.
To stay informed about the startup ecosystem, subscribe to My Startup TV.